It's not Comrade Tucker. It's not based Tucker. It's a Tucker who's so adamant about keeping an outdated system, which is capitalism, in place that he's willing to stop the progress of technology in order to keep people working jobs that could be obsolete. So before we get into the segment, let me preface this by saying that we're going to watch a Tucker Carlson clip. And for those who don't know who Tucker Carlson is he's a conservative pundit, like a talking head for Fox News. Some people, myself included, will call him fascist and like enabling fascism in the United States, especially when it comes to trans people and just in general, enabling hatred. And for example, enabling the whole idea or legitimizing the whole idea of the Great Replacement theory, or the idea that white people are being replaced through some kind of plot. It's willfully being made that white people are being replaced in the United States. He did get like sued at one point, I believe, and he was being sued because I don't remember why, but he basically got away with saying like, what I'm saying is like it's not actually facts, it's opinions, or I think at one point he said comedy or something like that. The idea of like nobody can actually take me that seriously, and getting away by saying that. Anyway, what we're gonna look is like here he's not doing any comedy, and he's not even being hateful or enabling hate, because that would be too easy to I believe to comment on and debunk. What I want to Tucker Carlson, like many what I would call fascists, one of the things that he might do is appeal to the working class through leftist sentiment or leftist in aesthetics or leftist appearing ideas. Like, for example, being very anti-establishment, but not necessarily calling it capitalism, but being against big tech, you know, which is something that the left would be against, because we're against, well, any concentration of power. They're against it for other reasons, but, you know, they use a lot of that rhetoric to basically say power to the people. But like, you know, what they're actually doing is they're only criticizing power that they don't like, instead of actually criticizing power for what it is, which is, you know, either political power, economic power, or being something that's inherently hierarchic and unfair, at least from my anarchist perspective. Now, all of that to say, I just wanted to preface this. I'm looking at this because it might sound like a leftist. I saw this on TikTok, so, you know, it's with an interview with Ben Shapiro, where they kind of debate, and then it's like Tucker Carlson looks like kind of a leftist, or like a defender of the people, right? And I just want to remind everyone that, for example, not to draw any comparisons, but there are some pretty hateful movements that have called themselves socialist without having any leftist ideas. The National Socialist Party of Germany was in no way socialist, but still called themselves socialist to appeal to a broader angry base. So now let's look at the segment. And here is Tucker Carlson. He is going to be talking to Ben Shapiro. They're talking about a book. It's an old clip. I think it was 5 years ago in 2018. Let me know if it's if you hear well.
If you wake up one morning and you find yourself in a society where 23-year-olds with 4-year college degrees and like initiative who aren't smoking weed every day, if they can't make enough to buy a car, much less a home, much less get married, much less have children, then why should you be surprised when half of them say they prefer socialism?
Well,
you should not be surprised. And like, that's the thing, like, he is right. And leftists will agree with him, and perhaps even some conservative will say, yeah, well, society's fucked, and their solution is socialism, but they're wrong. But we shouldn't be surprised when everything's going so bad that people will turn to socialism. I feel like that's something that a lot of people can agree with. But so far we're in agreement, but don't be fooled. And here's what his prescriptive prescription is.
Not be surprised.
I agree to a certain extent. I think that the question is when the pedal hits the metal. Like you talk in the book about technology and how it's shifting and taking away jobs from folks. Yes. And you make specific reference to truck driving and the fact that there are going to be these automated cars on the roads. So would you, Tucker Carlson, be in favor of restrictions on the ability of trucking companies to use this sort of technology specifically to, sort of artificially maintain the number?
So what is being advocated for right now is, would you be against the progress of technology, to not lose jobs? Would you be against labor being less necessary socially to be able to fulfill our needs as a society? And here's what Tucker Carlson answers to
of jobs that are available in the trucking industry.
Are you joking? In a second. In a second. In other words, if I were president, when I say to DOT, to Department of Transportation, we're not letting driverless trucks on the road, period. Why? Really simple. Driving for a living is the single most common job for high school educated men in this country, in all 50 states. By the way, that's the same group whose wages have gone down by 11% over the past 30 years. The social cost of eliminating their jobs in a 10-year span, 5-year span, 30-year span is so high that it's not sustainable. So the greater good is protecting your citizens from, look, capitalism is the best economic system I can think of, I think that anyone's ever thought of, but that doesn't mean that it's a religion and everything about it is good.
No, but
there's no Nicene Creed of capitalism that I have to buy into. What I care about is living in a country where, decent people can live happy lives, actually. And so, no, I would say immediately, no, are you joking? And I maybe would make up some pretext for public consumption, like, oh, they're dangerous. The technology is not quite finessed. No. But the truth would be, I don't want to put 10 million men out of work because you're going to have 10 million dead families, and the cascading effect from that will wreck your country.
So here is the issue with anybody who is able to notice the problems of capitalism, but have no good alternative to it. Anthony Barsness says, Tucker, my boy Tucker is becoming Marxist. No, he's not. No, he's not. Because here what you have is someone who is so married to the idea of capitalism, even if he says like, oh, it's not perfect or it's the best thing I can think of, but like, I'm not married, like I'm not, like this person is 100% into capitalism to the point where in order to preserve capitalism, he is willing to stop automation. People saying, damn, he killed it. No, he didn't. He did not. Imagine, like, this is a paradox within capitalism, which I think is strongly conducive to have people rethink capitalism, in the sense that automation under capitalism is a bad thing, and it's the only system that you can think of, economic system, where you say, all right, we can automize some part of production, and it's the only system where we think that's a bad thing. Think of any society in the history of humanity and you say, hey, listen, food will be made automatically for you. Most of humanity in the history of humanity would go, hell yeah, we're getting food like automatically made for us. That's amazing, in terms of production. But under capitalism, that's a bad thing. And why is it a bad thing? That means that people who work to make food are out of a job. So if food becomes automized and can be distributed very cheaply or even for free, but we don't think in those terms. So what we think is, well, someone still needs to make profit off of that, and therefore, who will be able to afford it if nobody has a job because it's all been automized? In other words, to make it a bit more simply, if all of production for some reason was all automized, most of human societies in the history of humanity would be happy, but capitalist societies would see it as a failure, because most people would be out of jobs, and therefore how would they be able to afford the commodities that don't even require labor to make. And we should be happy about the automation of labor and of these kinds of tendencies for labor to be made, for products to be made without labor. That's what we want. We want people to be freed of labor, to be able to work less hours per week and be able to actually do things with their lives that are outside of, you know, working for someone else. Like if people are freed up from work because it's been being automized, and in that case, they can, you know, read books, they can watch movies, they can actually contribute to society in a way that they want to, and not through working for someone else. All these things can be enabled by automation. And when people can't work to feed themselves, and even if food is like costs nothing, we're like, all right, well, that's a problem. The problem is not the fact that people are not feeding themselves. The problem is that people can't do jobs that are, well, at this point, kind of outdated because they've been replaced by technology. But the problem is these people can't even feed themselves anymore because they can't work. The food is still there, but now since they can't work, they can't feed themselves. Again, the food is still there, but they can't have access to it because now they don't have a job, even though we would make that outdated job artificially imposed. Anyway, so it's not Comrade Tucker. It's not based Tucker. It's a Tucker who's so adamant about keeping an outdated system, which is capitalism, in place, that he's willing to stop the progress of technology in order to keep people working jobs that could be obsolete. If you think of a future, you should be thinking of a future where most of the labor that people don't want to do is labor made by robots or automation, and that people still in need of work will work, but can work 4 hours a day, you know, or the same amount of hours per day, but, you know, 3-4 days a week. That's our ideal society, or part, like a step like close to our ideal society. This person doesn't see that as realistic, and to make sure that that's not realistic, is willing to stop our system from getting to that point by automizing wages or automizing jobs. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, not a comrade, just wants to preserve capitalism artificially. The development of the means of production are crucial in freeing us from labor and in creating the material conditions to create a freer society. What Tucker here is doing is saying, let's slow down the development of the means of production in order to preserve capitalism, because capitalism will not be able to sustain more efficient material conditions. That's not based. That's cringe. That's all I wanted to say. That's all I wanted to say for Tucker. A lot of people fall into that trap, right? But these people will use our rhetoric against us to preserve outdated systems. Yeah, Tom Fuller says, there is so much dogma surrounding the topic of employment and capitalism in America. Just listen to the way Tucker equated survival of your family and the security of your job. That's super interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Survival of your family relies on the security of your job. Survival of your family can be done through many, many other ways if we decide collectively that people shouldn't die if they don't have a job. But Tucker here is saying we need to keep people having jobs or else they'll die. And if people start dying from not having jobs, we're going to need to find an alternative that prevents people from dying if they don't have a job. And that alternative is very scary to Tucker Carlson. So he wants to keep that equation of survival of your family to the security of your job. Really good point, Tom Fuller. We're going to add that to the segment, even though I said we were done.